7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Hello everybody, I'm your host Ashton, and welcome back to The Sound of Fear, the show where we break down the sounds that make your blood run cold. It's our job to find out which songs bring the fear and which songs fall flat. In this week's episode, we're going to talk about one of the most influential slasher series of all time, the birth of the hockey mask, Friday the 13th. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get into the video. The film starts and we see the famous Camp Crystal Lake in the year 1958. Inside one of the cabins, a group of camp counselors sing about Jesus. I'm sure these are very holy people. Back outside, the camera takes perspective of an unknown character as they sneak into a cabin full of campers. This is accompanied by our first track of the movie, titled Overlay of Evil. Two of our Jesus-loving counselors, Barry and Claudette, sneak out into a barn to have a romp in the hay. Little do they know, they're not alone. The couple hears someone coming up the stairs who they seem to recognize. But before Barry can explain himself, the person behind the camera stabs him in the stomach, accompanied by Overlay of Evil once again. Claudette tries to get away, but with no way out of the attic, she's cornered and killed. As we zoom in on her face, we get the title card of the film. Friday the 13th was a pretty small production, having $500,000 at their disposal, but went on to dominate the box office, making over $60 million. Director Sean S. Cunningham had no idea that he would be creating one of the most iconic and influential film series of all time. He especially had no idea the hockey mask-toting Jason would become popular, as, spoiler alert, he's not even in this movie. Well, not really. A young girl named Annie Phillips enters a cafe and asks if anybody knows how to get to Camp Crystal Lake. Everyone looks at her as if she just said, "He who shall not be named." One of the townsfolk offers to give her a ride, but before they make it to their truck, they get interrupted by a crazy man named Ralph. He tells her about the death curse that surrounds the camp. Real creative with that one, Ralph. On the drive there, we found out that Annie is the cook of the camp and has been hitchhiking her way there. The truck driver tells Annie about the spotted history of the camp, how those two counselors died and another unknown kid who died the year before. Foreshadowing. Annie is dropped off and we quickly cut to a red car going down the road with our next track titled Banjo Travelin'. In the car are three more counselors, being Ned Rubenstein, Marcy Cunningham, and Jack Morant, who's played by Kevin Bacon in one of his first acting roles. The three of them pull into the camp where they meet this hunk of a man, Steve Christie, the current owner of the summer camp. Steve calls inside for a girl named Alice to come and meet the new arrivals. Through a conversation between Alice and Steve, we find out that the two had previously been in a relationship, and now Alice is stuck here with home being on the other side of the country. At the lake, Alice meets another counselor named Bill before running back up to the main camp. While she's cleaning up, Brenda is almost hit by an arrow sent by Ned, who thinks he's being funny. Brenda is rightfully pissed, as Ned could have easily killed her here. Behind the scenes, this shot was actually just as dangerous, as someone really did almost shoot her with an arrow. That someone being Tom Savini. He is back being the makeup artist for the third episode in a row. Back on the road, we see Annie, who somehow still hasn't made it to the camp, signaling down a Jeep for a ride. Annie explains how her lifelong dream was to work with children. This really shows the fact that this is a movie because no one in real life would ever want to do that. Annie notices that they pass the road back to the camp, and right as she mentions it, our next track starts to play, back up to Annie alone.
I think we better stop. Please?
Just as Annie thinks she's gotten away, she trips and lands at the feet of her pursuer. Unable to escape, we mark Annie as the first counselor death of the movie. Not including Barry and Claudette, because flashbacks don't count, right? We catch back up with the counselors swimming at the lake, but someone is watching from the bushes. Ned pretends to drown so he can get a quick smooch session with Brenda. As 80s as it gets.
Oh, Nettie! Oh,
Back in her cabin, Alice is startled by a snake that found its way inside. Just as quick as she noticed it, Alice has the entire camp in her cabin trying to find and kill the snake. Fun fact about this scene, that was a real snake. Animal welfare laws weren't as strict at the time, Despite this, even in the 80s, they received some backlash, with some people claiming that the snake was a personal pet of the animal handler on set. This marks the first real death we've seen on this channel, and for the sake of everybody, let's hope we keep it that way. Outside, a police officer drives up to see Ned doing a pretty problematic dance.
Oh shit.
Probably couldn't do that one nowadays. Officer Dorff informs the kids that he's looking for the town crazy Ralph, the same guy who was raving at Annie back at the beginning. We see Alice picking up and getting ready to make dinner when she goes to open the pantry, and who does she see inside but Ralph, accompanied by his own track, rightfully titled Ralph in the Pantry.
You're doomed if you stay here.
Ralph leaves the campers with a dark omen that if they stay at the camp, they're all gonna die. If a crazy old guy appeared at my pantry and warned me about something, I am believing every single word he says.
It's got a death curse.
As the sun is setting, we catch up with Ned going for a lonely walk by the lake when he sees a stranger going into a cabin. As he goes to investigate, our next track titled Don't Smoke in Bed begins to play. Night sets in as a thunderstorm appears. Alice and Brenda sit around the fireplace and listen to Bill play some guitar. Brenda has the great idea to play strip Monopoly and smoke weed. Now, I wasn't around in the 80s, but I would have to believe that this is what everyone was doing. Out in a different cabin, Jack and Marcy are getting it on when the song Don't Smoke in Bed begins to play again. The camera pans up to the bunk above them and we see Ned with his throat slit. No, you didn't! Marcy heads out to use the bathroom, leaving Jack alone in the cabin. But right as he goes to light a cigarette, someone from underneath the bed grabs him and stabs an arrow right through his throat. All of this is accompanied once again by Don't Smoke in Bed. Out with Marcy in the bathhouse, the door creaks open, starting our next track titled Not Tonight, Jack, I Have a Headache. Marcy keeps hearing noises, but shoots them down thinking they're nothing. The camera slowly approaches her as another new track starts, titled Brenda and Lights. As Marcy searches the showers, thinking it's Jack tricking her, a shadow looms behind her. Turning around, she comes face to face with an axe. Literally. Back at the Monopoly cabin, Brenda runs off to make sure she didn't leave the windows open in her cabin. We cut to a diner somewhere where we see Steve getting a late night meal, and as he starts making his way back to the camp. Back at Crystal Lake and in the bathhouse, we see Brenda getting ready for bed. It becomes almost an exact replica of the shot of Marcy getting ready earlier, even with the same track, Brenda and Lights. Back at her cabin, Brenda hears someone outside calling for help. She runs out into the woods, searching for whoever is calling for help before she finds herself at the archery range. Someone turns on the breaker, flashing the lights, practically blinding poor Brenda. We cut back to the main cabin with a scream, worrying Alice. Bill and Alice decide to go out into the rain to look for Brenda to make sure she's okay. The two find Brenda's cabin completely empty, except for a bloody axe in one of the beds, accompanied by our next track titled The Bed Axe.
What is going on?
They search the rest of the camp, and when they're unable to find anyone, they decide that they have to call the cops. Upon breaking into the main office, they find that the phones don't work, and it turns out that someone actually cut the line. And as if their luck couldn't get any worse, their car decides to conveniently stop working right now. Steve gets dropped off right as the rain stops and has to run the rest of the way back to camp. Better hope Pennywise doesn't see you, bud.
You float soul!
Somebody does see him though, as a flashlight clicks on from behind the main entrance sign, blocking whoever is behind him. Whoever it is, Steve recognizes them and asks what they're doing out here. They obviously don't like that question. We get more of the classic Friday the 13th key ma 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 as the killer sabotages the generator, turning off the power to the entire camp. Bill heads out to check the generator, leaving Alice on the couch as we get the tail end of the track, The Bed Axe, playing in the background. Alice wakes up from her nap and, worried that Bill isn't back yet, goes out looking for him. Down at the generator shed, Alice finds Bill's raincoat but no Bill. Oh wait, there he is! Alice runs away in fear with our next track titled Alice Runs to the Cabin. Locking herself in, Alice begins to fortify the cabin. Baseball bat in hand, Alice tries to figure out her next move, but before she can do anything, Brenda's body comes flying through the window. The work put into traumatizing this girl is insane. The killer would have had to drag Brenda's body halfway across the camp just to throw her through this window to scare Alice. Outside, Alice sees a Jeep pull up. Running to it for help, Alice meets an older woman who says her name is Mrs. Voorhees and that she's an old friend of Steve's family. Alice desperately tries to get Mrs. Voorhees to believe her about the murders, but she insists on going to check it out for herself. Upon seeing Brenda's body, Miss Voorhees gets upset and explains to Alice the history of Camp Crystal Lake. A young boy drowned a year before Barry and Claudette died. Miss V explains that the counselors weren't paying attention to Jason and were off making love somewhere. With one of the most iconic reveals in horror history, we find out that Jason was Miss Voorhees' son, and she has been the one killing the counselors so that the camp could never be opened again. This whole scene has been accompanied by our next track titled Miss V Comes Clean.
Oh, I couldn't let them open this place again. Could I? Not after what happened.
Mrs. V, clearly driven mad by the death of her son, lunges at Alice to kill her, but not before Alice grabs a fire poker and beats an old lady. Trying to take the Jeep and escape, Alice finds Annie's body as the sharp sting of Mrs. V Comes Clean screeches in the background. Before she can get far, however, Alice is jump scared by a... Oh my god, I can't speak. Josh, fuck you. I hope you know that. Fuck you. I don't really mean that. I'm just embarrassed. Before she can get far, however, Alice is jump scared by Steve's body dangling from a tree. Mrs. Voorhees keeps having these moments where she hears Jason speaking in her head, saying things like, "Kill her, mommy," and "Don't let her get away." That's probably a sign for child therapy, just saying. Alice hides in a hunting shed where she finds a gun, but while desperately searching for bullets, Mrs. V is gone and turned the power back on for the camp. Maybe she's not all bad.
Kill her, Mommy. Kill her.
Never mind, I take it back. Mrs. V starts slapping the shit out of Alice, but Alice is able to grab the gun from earlier and beat Mrs. V off like I have to do with the ladies. Barely being able to evade Miss V, Alice makes a break for it to try and get back to the cabin, all while being accompanied by our next track, Alice Runs to Light. Alice hides in the pantry, but before long hears that Mrs. V is in the cabin looking for her. Pretending to leave to trick Alice, Mrs. V begins to break the door down, with Alice's only form of protection being a frying pan. Dodging her machete and hitting her with her trusty frying pan, Alice escapes and makes it down to the lake. While Alice is taking a moment to rest, someone else is sneaking up behind her with the track titled The Last Fight. As Alice is able to break free from Mrs. V's hold, she jumps for her machete and delivers one of the most, and I know I've said this word a lot in this video, iconic decapitations in horror history. With the adrenaline wearing off and the weight of her situation setting in, Alice gets into a canoe to head out onto the lake, hoping to escape. Her only passenger being our final track of the film, titled Closing Theme. Alice wakes up alone on the lake in time to see a police car arrive. Just as she is about to head back to shore and be saved, Jason jumps out of the water and grabs her, dragging her down to where he died. Alice wakes up screaming in a hospital bed. She's grateful to be alive, but finds out that everyone else from the camp is dead. She asks about whether or not Jason is dead, but the cops say they don't know who that is, and they didn't find a boy. With this, Alice realizes that Jason's still at the bottom of Crystal Lake, and probably always will be. Such an amazing and influential movie such as this one deserved an episode, and we were more than happy to make this. We're doing this a bit differently in this episode with our new segment called Staff Stars, where the crew of The Sound of Fear tells you if the movie's worth a watch or if you're better off just skipping. For Friday the 13th, we have our ratings as follows. Myself as our presenter, Josh, our lovely editor, and Joseph as our amazing social media supervisor. Our ratings averaged out to this movie being a 3.5 out of 5 stars. So if you want to get into horror movies, this is the perfect place to start. We want to thank you all so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed the movie and the score that supports it. And as always, we'll see you guys next time.